Hey, welcome to the God Theory Podcast. This is episode 12. And we're coming from the past, yo. We're recording this early because I'm fitting to go to Mexico with my family.
That rhymes. So freestyling right there.
Yeah, I'm going with some cousins, some sisters, some in-laws, some chillins.
It's family.
That's the definition. That I value, yes. But yeah, so sorry, but it will be released on time. But if you're a YouTube viewer, like some of you are, a few of you are, then well, you get a sneak preview. That's what you get.
A little double dose, a little back-to-back Sunday, Monday action.
You're a special flower. But yeah, so I'm excited about that, dude. Excited about going to Mexico. Excited about getting, it's going to be a different vacation than usual. Usually go without children, but this time there's going to be children present.
Is it still a vacation when there's children?
I don't know. That's the thing. Like, gotta make sure they're not drowning or eating sand or doing weird stuff like they do, you know? Just digging stuff out of the garbage. One time, Davian, he got out of the car, looked down, and was like, that seems like something I should put in my mouth. And it was in a public parking lot. Don't even know what it was. Some kind of paper with some kind of gooey stuff on it. Not good.
See, I don't have kids, but my experience babysitting makes me think that parenting is like 95% trying to keep your kids from killing themselves.
Yeah.
Does that sound about right?
5% gentle guidance towards some like developmental objective. Yeah.
Yeah. Mostly just keeping them alive is about all of your attention span.
Did you see a Louis C.K. thing where he talks about, he's like, having kids is stressful, dude. He's like, I mean, like just trying to get them to eat. You're like, eat, put it in your mouth, chew it, and swallow it. If you don't, the cops will come and arrest me.
Yeah.
For negligence.
Well, Louis C.K.
Yeah, it's hilarious, man. And kids think they're so fucking clever. They're not. I mean, it's just like a rat or anything else. Like they're gonna do what works for them. But like they'll be like, oh man, I just ate all this food, I didn't eat much of this food, but I really want dessert. And then you can see them start poking your prod, just like like a mouse or anything else, and they start sticking their nose into like separate circles to see which one's gonna release that sweet reward. They're like, but I'm not hungry for dinner anymore. And I'm like, oh, real clever. Yeah, I get that. Yep. Nope. Not how that works. So, yeah, that's how it's going to be. I'm sure of it, man. I've got a suicidal kid who's just, Jesus. He's the 4-year-old, and he thinks he's like 31 because he's like, fuck it, I'm an adult. I'll dive right into this pool face first. I can't swim. YOLO. And he just jumps. He's just crazy.
I never understood why you only live once makes you like do more high-risk behavior. Like to me, that'd be like, YOLO, I'm staying indoors, not doing anything dangerous because I only have one life. You only live once.
Hey, pass that suntan lotion. We've been out here for a while. YOLO.
Right?
Yeah, that's how I feel.
Go skydiving? No way, YOLO.
Oh, man. YOLO way. But I'm thinking about, because normally what I do is like, you just spend a lot of time, there's free drinks and food. So you just spend a lot of time just like, writing a buzz out. And then like having them, you're like, excuse me. Yes. Could you bring me some nachos and cheese with bacon on it? Because I'm an adult. Just bring it here to me. I don't want to go all the way to the bar. That's 12 steps away. And they're like, of course. And they go and get it for you. So like now I'm going to be like.
Colonialism paying off.
I'm a piece of shit. But I'm going to love it while we're on top because it's going to suck
that third world. You value this, don't you? This is a $5, but to you that represents a lot of money. Go do my bidding.
Dude, when you live in paradise, you need to vend that shit. And they're starting to get it. Like this stuff that used to cost like it used to cost like $20 to like get a ride from the airport. Now it's $130. Like they're getting it.
That they can afford it.
Yeah, that pieces of shit like us will use
That's how
that.
it was in Manila for me. Like I'd go to the Philippines, which is kind of like Asia's Mexico. There's a lot of parallels, former Spanish colony, kind of third worldy. Lots of other people use it as a vacation site. So I'd go down there and I would just live off of like $20 would get me all the booze I could drink and all the food I could ever want. And I feel vaguely guilty about it, but not enough to stop.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, I guess. I'm sure there's like some white guilt we can have there for sure. Like as far as like, this is pretty shitty that, this is expendable income to us. And then it's quite a bit more. But honestly, I mean, maybe it's just the ACT therapist in me, but I'm just like, yeah, sometimes you get kind of a shitty place in life. Just do the best you can. And working in resorts, like really great job for them. So like, because that particular part, there's like a really commercialized part of Cancun or in Mexico in general, but and then there's parts that aren't so great. So it's actually, a really good honor to be in there. So they actually like refuse tips and stuff because it's like a really like great thing. And they're, oh man, most of them, occasionally it's not, but most of them are like super happy and nice because they've got kind of a dream job. They get paid really well for that economy, for what they do. And all they have to do is like help us have a good time. So they're like, come on, get up and dance. You're white. It's fine. You had alcohol. It'll be great. And you're like, okay. And you do, you know, and they usually love it. But
yeah, they're probably happier anyway.
Something I don't. Honestly, yeah. Like if I was in a third world country, and not third world, Mexico's like second world, I think, but whatever. All I'm saying is that you know, you do the best of what you can. Like we're in America, we're not the greatest nation in the world. Sorry, Tea Party, we're not. But you know, we do the best of what we can in this situation. Like, you know, we don't have free healthcare, and a lot of people are denied human rights. But I just try to think like, okay, that's my story. That's fine. That's the book I got. But how am I going to write the rest of this thing? You know. So I just. It's like when people say like being angry is like holding a hot coal tightly and expecting the other person to get hurt by that. That's not how that works. It's just hurting you. So like I try not to get too
mirror neurons will kick in eventually if I just stare at them hard enough.
Yeah, indeed.
So you'll be gone. No. Long story short, which is why we're recording early. But what is our topic?
So we're talking about things like so there's a lot of these. Well, I don't actually. Why don't you introduce it? This is your idea, right?
Okay, so there's like ironies that we pick up on, things that are unexpected, not like the isn't it ironic when it rains on your wedding day version of irony, but like irony being like the opposite of what you expected. And if I told you that what I valued was family, like family values, right? I love families. Yeah. Families are forever. God makes my family strong. I love family. How would you expect me to behave in that case?
You'd probably be doing things that enhance your interpersonal relationships in the family, right?
Yeah. And we see oftentimes the opposite. Like I know personally people whose families are being destroyed by religion when one person leaves the faith, you know, stops believing in God, becomes an atheist, whatever. It's never the atheists who start disowning Christians, you know? It's the opposite. And you work with couples a lot. Like I don't know how often this comes up for you, but in Utah, where a lot of people are leaving Mormonism, it comes up all the time. Like my cousin's going through it. A lot of people I know are going through this, where families are being split apart by an institution that claims to value families above everything else.
Yeah, that is interesting. Like I see that, yeah, quite a bit as well. I actually looked up research. I can't find any, and I really dug. Like I'm not just like, you know, scholar Googling this. Although that's a good resource. I'm just saying that like I actually put a lot of time into this, looking up interfaith marriages and interfaith families. You know, there's been some research done on like faith, different kinds of faith coexisting in like like an organization in IO psychology and also in a family or a marriage, but almost none on atheism or non-belief plus any other kind of belief. It's usually like between two, like Jews and Christians, can they be married and what's their success rate and what's their happiness, you know, that kind of thing. But it's rarely, I can't find anything on like atheism, someone leaving the faith, which is a really relevant topic. I think we should look into it.
Yeah, especially as it happens more and more. You saw that latest Pew survey that said that like the non-believers, like it was just Christianity was shrinking basically was the result, and non-believing was just like shooting through the roof. So we're going to see as the future progresses, I'm sure that trend will continue. More and more families become split faith families where part of them are religious, part of them aren't. And I've got no issue with like, if my family's religious, that's cool. I love them just the same. But the other way around, like the religious to atheist relations, they tend to get hurt a lot.
Yeah, that's the crazy part. And I feel horrible because, you know, I've talked to a few couples where someone left the faith and then the other person hadn't. And it'll be something like, sometimes it's like I've probably seen like 3-4 couples like this where it's been a major issue. In fact, it's the primary issue that drove them from apart with each other. And I think that's weird, especially because there's no research on it. I don't know what to do about that. Like, I honestly can't tell them success rates. A lot of people come and they want to know, as soon as they get into therapy, they're like, what are the chances I'm going to get better? What are the chances it's going to get a lot better? And I love having like statistics on that. Like, for example, like GAD, if they come and get, you know, cognitive behavioral therapy, it's a 77% symptom elevation. Like they like to know that, or alleviation, sorry. And but with interfaith couples, I don't have a statistic. I don't know why or if there's a chance that they'll get better. And honestly, this is really shitty. I want to be like, I don't know. It depends on that religious person right there. Like it depends on your spouse. It depends on your family. Like it's not up to me. You know, all I can do is try to get you guys to take your faith less seriously, because yeah, you shouldn't be interyoked or whatever, you know, like
unequally yoked.
Unequally yoked. Yeah. So it's difficult. Really, I'm like, it depends on how much of an asshole that person wants to be. It's kind of like um, in a much less. This is a bad analogy, but it's a similar approach that I take if someone has been unfaithful. Like if they come, and this is one of the most common. First of all, being unfaithful is not uncommon. When people think that this is common, like I didn't know this either. But then when we went through our marital therapy, I saw multiple studies where this was looked at, and people being unfaithful is something in like the 69, 60, or 70%. It's just below 70, so 69, 68%. And that's both male and female. There's almost an indistinguishable difference between the two. The common narrative is that it's mostly females,
men, right?
Or mostly men, yeah. And that's just not true. As it turns out, it's both. It's just that men, unfortunately, are more likely to have a. Well, no, that's not true actually. So I don't know. But men tend to get like caught more often, or just to get screwed over more often. Not screwed over. It's not being screwed over. That's stupid. I'm just saying, like, of the people getting away with it, it's more often females, which is weird. But the thing is when people come and see, I can give them a statistic. I can be like, oh yeah, here's kind of a chance that you guys are going to get together. But more importantly, I'm like, it kind of depends, man. Like if it was the girl who cheated, then I'm like, it kind of depends on your husband. Like, you know, how much does this mean to him, really? I mean, you know, it's, yes, couples can get over this easily. Like, it's not easily, sorry, but often do with a great success rate. It just all depends. The largest variation we see is, you know, how important is this to the other person? Like, you hurt them bad, you know, now you gotta, it just depends. Like if they're gonna, if they want to live a life with you and make it work or not. So it's kind of the same thing. I'm like, except this one's like, for me, because I don't value religion. I feel like it's shitty, you know. I'm like, I don't know, it depends on how much of a dick they're gonna be about it.
Yeah, it's funny that you compare it to infidelity, because that's often how they view it from the religious side. It's this not purposeful per se, but it's this idea that we had an understanding going into this marriage. We were both going to be God, you know, we're going to have this threesome with Jesus in the middle of our bed all the time. You know, like it's me, my wife, and God. Like that's how religious people tend to view marriage when they get married. And sometimes it's even, I put God first, then my wife, or I put God first, then my husband, right? And that's a pretty common religious narrative. And so when one person changes the deal, per se, like one person decides God's no longer in the picture, it's like you're rewriting the terms of a contract you've already signed. And they do feel like that same sense of betrayal that you would feel if you found out that your wife was sleeping with your best friend. Not that that would ever happen, just a hypothetical that I threw out there.
Yeah. No, this is one of the most common things that people come in with. They're not most common. There's a different like themes to why people's relationships get worse, whether this is in a family or in a relationship, like a sexual relationship or a romantic relationship. It's one of them is called the bait and switch, which is like we came in with this understanding and then you switched halfway through, and that could be like something like you know, let's say like someone wants to be a stay-at-home dad, or more traditionally, I guess, a stay-at-home mom, right? And then halfway through, the spouse says, you know, I want to be the stay-at-home spouse, and you need to be the one who goes and works. That can work fine. It can be like, oh, okay. But if the person could be like, no, that was an understanding we had coming in, you know, that was a bait and switch. That's really shitty. So, yeah, I mean, I understand it. I get it. It sucks to be them. But if religion isn't real, if there's no God, then it sucks even worse to be the atheist. Way worse. Because it's all pretense that's holding you back.
Right. You're basically losing everything you hold dear because of a mythology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's incredibly, I'm noticing it more often now with the Duggar thing. You know, he was on the Family Research Council, and he had to resign from that because I guess he took it too literally, the family research portion of that title. But like, I'm noticing it more and more now, because these people who claim that family is the most important thing, like the Mormons had that ad campaign, family, isn't it about time? You know, they always stress eternal families, like when the missionaries do their door approach, like, did you know your family can be together forever? It's just like creating a problem that no one's even had. Like no one pictures heaven as like, and you can't see your family again. But that's like a big Mormon selling point. It's like, yeah, you can be with your family forever. And then they destroy families. Like they just straight up, they used to counsel that, you know, you to leave your husband or leave your wife if they left the faith. Like, I don't think they actively do that anymore, but for a long time they did. And there's still that kind of vibe of you can't get to the highest degree of glory without like a temple marriage, right? So it's just strange that these people who claim to be all about family are actively destroying families.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, you see people I mean, there's two different camps on like values, right? Like in psychology, there's some people say you can have values conflicts. So like, let's say I value being a good friend to you, but I also value, um, I don't know, fairness or something. And so let's say that you borrowed like my video game for your 3DS and you never gave it back. Like
Okay.
this is a hypothetical.
Yeah, I can't follow, but I'm
Okay, yeah.
in that situation.
Just imagine if you were this bad of a person.
Okay.
And then, you know, like, and oh man, I really value justice. It's like my thing, right? Like I'm obsessed with it. Let's say like I've gotten to criminal justice and it's been my whole life. Like I think that people need to pay for their responses because I don't understand human behavior and I think that's the only way people change. Then that's one value. And then, but the other value is to be a good friend. And so suddenly you'll have these moments where you're like, I've got these two competing values. But there's another camp, and the ACT in particular doesn't believe that you can have competing values per se. And it's really about you can have a successful solution to all the situations. And more importantly, competing has the idea that there's a but or a versus. And if you take more of an Eastern philosophy way of thinking things, which I don't like most of Eastern philosophy, but one good part is they have the synthesis rather than a
zero-sum game.
Yeah, zero-sum game, exactly. So they say like, if I go to like medieval times, or that's a hard one because that's actually just awesome. But like, let's say I go to a professional development conference. A lot of people have probably been to these. You go, there's parts of it you love and there's parts of it you loathe, right? In Western thought, we expect you to say, did you like it or did you not? And they expect to say one or the other. And really, it's both. You're like, I loved it and I hated it. Like, it just depends, like, which part I was in. Like, you know, the registration part sucked because it was expensive. On the other hand, it's also true that I enjoyed myself in the conferences. Well, was it worth the money? Some parts were, some parts weren't. Overall, I mean, if I had to make it a zero-sum game, I guess so. But anyway, there's some pitfalls to both of those ways of thinking. But it is generally more healthy for people to have what we call psychological flexibility, which means like being able to rescript a situation and consider both the good and bad at the same time, and then not making a summarical judgment on it, because it's just more useful to us as human beings. Like I find myself getting less depressed about things because overall living is it awesome or does it suck? Philosophy still doesn't know, you know, has all its downs, has all its goods. And I don't know, just depends. If existential philosophy, sure. Absurdism, maybe not. Or no, absurdism, yes, but
love absurdism.
Some of the dark, yeah, but like some of the good life stuff, maybe not.
Do you think that part of the problem is that they are mislabeling what they value? Like when they say we value family or we value traditional families, what they mean is they value, I don't know, I feel like if you valued families, you would be okay with gay marriage because you also value kids having a home, and gays are really good at adopting kids, and every study shows that they make excellent parents, sometimes better parents than straight couples, right?
Yeah.
So when they say we value like children or we value families, maybe what they mean to say is we value things the way they used to be.
Yeah, maybe. I think what's funny is like no matter who I work with, I do values work as one of the first parts of almost all therapies. It's part of the evidence-based stuff on a lot of therapies, and the ones where there's no clear evidence, no clear like manual basically to go by, they'll have modules, and one of them is like the values things. I found that this worked on. I've worked with populations that have intellectual disability, so you know, commonly called retarded.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say religious. I was like, easy there, tiger. Put the claws away.
Also called David Drake.
Oh, that was personal.
All the way up to like people with PhDs. Like I work with some of the faculty at the University of Mississippi, and then some of the surrounding type schools. I've worked with, you know, the whole gamut of intelligence, and I have not found that this is not something that anybody ever gets correct. And that's value stuff. It's basically just like what, and well, it's not basically anything. It's actually really long, so I won't get into it. But it's essentially, okay. You were a Mormon. You know the guy Stephen Covey.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
the 7 Habits of Highly Effective Douchebags.
Yeah. Did you ever read that book?
No, I did not.
But wait, no. You had some of your
effective person.
You had some of your students do something like this. Remember, you had them write 2 pieces of paper.
Yes. Okay, so I was talking about ways that we sabotage ourselves, and one of the ways we sabotage ourselves is by thinking that we're magically going to be someone different tomorrow than we are today without changing anything today. And so what I had them do was I had them write down what they value, like their top 5 values: friends, family, my education, whatever. Then I had them make a list of everything they did yesterday and how much time they spent on it. So like from 8 to 8:15, I had breakfast. From 9 to 7, I was at school, or whatever they did, right? Then I had them look at that list and reorder it from the amount of time they spent. And then I was like, that's actually what you value. If you said you value music, you value being a good guitarist, but you didn't practice the guitar yesterday, then you don't actually value being a good guitarist. Like, you value Netflix, you value Facebook, you value hanging out with your friends, and that's fine. It's fine to, like, those are things that you're doing it for a reason. Like, it's serving some purpose for you, but you need to be honest about what you actually value, or you're never going to be the person you think you're going to be. Like, if I say, like, in 10 years I'm going to be fluent in Japanese, but I'm not actually learning Japanese, it's probably not going to happen. It's like the guys who are working at a Kinko's, and they're like, yeah, I'm going to be a really good playwright someday. I'm going to write like a great screenplay, but they're not working on it.
Yeah. Yeah. What is your daily habit that moves you towards that?
Mm-hmm.
And then, I get to it. I've never met a famous screenwriter that was their, I mean, maybe it's happened. There's always, lightning strikes sometimes, but yeah, that idea of like time management, like in behavioral psychology, we believe that a person is the whole thing they are is how they behave. It doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter what you say you intended. Yeah. Right. It depends on what you do. So it doesn't mean like, that's not like as catastrophic as it sounds. When I first heard that, I was like, oh my God. But afterwards I was like, oh, I get it. Okay. Yeah. So if I'm saying something to Dave, like let's say I'm snippy to David because I got a lot of shit to do. Let's say I'm packing or something, and oh God, I got to get to the podcast. And he's like, dude, hey, you're around. We got to record this thing. And if I'm like, dude, I'm going to get to it when I can. I may have intended to be nice to him. I may have intended to be happy. It doesn't matter what I intend. I may have intended to jerk off. It doesn't matter what I intended. What I did was I hurt my friend. And so I need to, like, I can only be like, oh, you know what? He doesn't know what I'm thinking. In fact, mind reading, what we call mind reading, when somebody's like, I think I know what they meant, is strictly prohibited in behavioral psychology. We go, nope, don't do that. Don't do that with your spouse. Don't do that with anyone you know. That cannot ever help. Like at best.
No. Don't tell me how I feel. I'll tell you how I feel.
How I feel, yeah. And then, because then people doubt people are like, oh, I didn't mean to do that. And you're like, how could you not? Because you did this. And it's like, you know what? Why are we even talking about that? They did this and now they're apologizing. Let's focus on that. And they're like, well, they might do it again. You're like, well, that's what behavioral psychology is all about, making sure they don't do it again. It doesn't matter what they think this time. Let's say they did, worst case scenario, intend to hurt you, but now they're apologizing. What does that matter if it's going to change later, right? Like, it won't help us. We're mind reading. We're either right or wrong. If I mind read and think that person meant to do that, and I'm right, great. Well, what does that do? He's still going to try to change next time, except I'm going to be a dick to him, right? And so that's going to lower the probability that he's going to be nicer to me. Let's say that I mind read and I assume that he didn't mean to hurt me. Then that's going to make me more lenient in the future, which is what? Probably going to raise the probability. And if it doesn't matter. Behavioral psychology just says, all right, well, it didn't raise the probability, to give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's do something different. Like, there's no getting around this method that it's better. So right. I think that this in particular, that's how we define goals is, okay, what are you doing? Somebody's like, I'm a great mom. I value being a good mom. Okay, what do you do for being a mom? Like, how much time do you put towards that? Like, let's go over your kind of what you're doing towards. And then not only that, we say how much do you value? How much do you like that thing that you'd like to be part of that person? How much are you behaving that way? And how much room do you have to grow? And then what are behavioral goals to get you there? Simple, tiny little, just baby step, tiny little building blocks that you can do this week. Because the point is process, right? Not content. Not like, well, then I'll start on that script tomorrow and I'll write 3 paragraphs of it. And it's like, no. That's not a realistic goal. That is not a sustainable goal. Let's just do a tiny little movement. Get a pen out, set a piece of paper down, look at it for 5 minutes, and then that's it. That's all we're going to expect. Maybe you will write the entire thing in 5 minutes, but let's not expect that. Let's not even set that as a goal, because then it's a failure if you didn't do it. But really, just if you did that every day, pull out for 5 minutes and kind of worked on it, you'd have a script guaranteed in a year, right?
Right.
Even if you'd like to have it sooner, that's fine. You can, but don't expect that you'll have these marathon sessions, because that's not sustainable.
Right.
And so the same thing here. We can handicap ourselves by having these. We act in a way that's not consistent with our values, right? Even though, because we're doing things that are immediately helpful. Like, I might eat at night. I might be like, fuck yeah, I want some fucking ice cream, and then I eat it. But then I'm like, man, I wanted to try to get in really good shape for Mexico, because I got to walk around my shirt off. Now I feel like a douchebag. I did what would help me in the short term, but that's not consistent with my long-term value of being healthy and happy and whatnot. Not that you can't eat ice cream. I eat ice cream. I'm just saying, I'm using this as a small example. Mm-hmm. So yeah, of like a larger goal. So with this, like, they may value that, but if they're not constantly referencing that map of where they want to be as a person, you know,
is this making my family stronger? Or is this like, whatever they say they value?
exactly. Like people are going to reinterpret the Bible. They have been for centuries. Like all you have to do, it's up to you to either, there are people out there who interpret it, who find out their kids are gay or a lesbian.
They're already ignoring the parts about not eating shellfish and wearing mixed fabrics. And you can just add the thing about stoning homosexuals to the list of things we don't pay attention to anymore.
Yeah. And I get it. It's difficult. It sucks. I remember being super religious, and it would have sucked really bad if like someone in my family come out and said, I'm gay. I would have been like, oh man, it makes me look bad. And I'm concerned for their eternal soul. And, whatever else, like, like let's say your family, or let's say you're like a deacon or something in the church, it could jeopardize that. But it really just depends. Like if you keep your values strong, you're like, you know what, I just want to be a good family person. And this involves, taking some hits sometimes. So maybe go to a new church that's a little more progressive and try to feel it out and see if that's cool with you.
Right. Do you value your church more than your family? Like, if so, then just be honest about it. Like, own up to it, but stop saying like, I value family more, and then treating it like you value it less than your church. And they don't always even realize it sometimes. Like with my cousin's situation, he was talking to some, aunts, uncles, cousins about the situation. And his, his wife is like, they're going through some stuff because of his atheism. And he's like, do you guys not see how weird it is that your church claims to be all about families and it's destroying my family? And they just were taken aback. Like they'd never thought of that before. They were just like, wow, it's really weird. Like it never occurred to them. And it happens all the time, like families just falling apart under the pressure of a mixed faith kind of marriage. And then they just also buy in the fact that, Mormons are all about family. Family is the most important thing for a Mormon. No success in the world can compensate for failure in the home. That's like a common Mormon quote they like throw around. Yeah. And yet they've never actually tested it. It's just, it's this big cognitive blind spot for religious people, I think.
Yeah. And like, the funny thing is like, even if you don't, this takes work, right? Like this values-based thing. Me and Amy do this with our kids. We do this with ourselves. We do this to each other. This is not something that people have figured out. It's not something that I have figured out. I've got a PhD level of knowledge of this stuff, and I use it on a regular basis. I still fuck up all the time, right? I'm getting better every day. That I'm on a good journey, but it's hard, dude. And so like I think clearly people do this on a regular basis. Even people who don't study this and don't know about this and don't try to do this all the time. And so it's not a bad thing. I just hope that people, whenever they see the value, that they're able to change their behaviors based on that. Like, and don't supersede it. They say like, do you love God or do you love your family? Because that's not necessarily true. There are a lot of people who love God who are just fine with LBGT. Instead, the question is, do you love this particular belief within your denomination and your, maybe, I don't know if this is part of it, but a social status in the church or whatever it is that's going on. Really figure out why, what this belief is buying you, and then say, do I value those things more than I value having a kid? Because what's the best case scenario? You kick your kid out. Are they going to get ungay on the street? No, you still have a gay kid. You're only just now shunning him. Like, there's zero chance. Let's say that you believe in gay conversion therapy. There's zero chance, and that's not a thing. So I'm not, do not do this. But I'm just saying that, let's say you do believe in it because you don't know research and you're
definitely not making him less gay by like shunning him.
Kicking him out has a 100% chance he's not going to therapy. Keeping him in and talking to him and being a poisonous piece of shit by telling him that it's evil has a decent amount. So even if you're a selfish, asshole, you still should keep them in the family. But I would never advise that. I'm just saying, like, if you truly use functional analytic behavior, psychology, then you're going to do it anyway. And then fortunately, if the, LBGT family member may choose at that point that, like, hey, I value having relationships that are positive influences on me, because I've found that, like bad influences make me depressed. They may choose to cut the family out if the family keeps trying to put in poisonous nonsense. But I'm just saying, like, at least both those people, I have no quarrel with that. I'm like, good, you both did something consistent with your values. You're cool.
Yeah,
like,
and this might not be across the board. I don't know how every religion like views family. I think that they all claim to value it. But I know with Mormons and with the Quiverful movement, that's a huge thing, is family, children, families are forever. And I just see the exact opposite in how they're behaving. Not every family, obviously, this is generalization, but oftentimes, I'm in a lot of like former Mormon like groups on Facebook, and I just see the same refrain over and over again. This family's crumbling under the pressure of religious confusion.
Or also the Duggar family, like apparently some of the victims were sisters.
Yeah, allegedly some of them were his own little sister, and whether he was at fault or not, like they're like, oh, he was just a kid back then. Okay, fine. Let's say he's not at fault. I think he was, but let's say he wasn't. Like the parents are responsible to protect their daughters, and their view of like families are important was like send them off to remodel homes. Like you're not acting the way you say your values are, and then he ends up on the most ironic twist of all, he ends up on the Family Research Council when the only research he's ever done was like, what does my sister's clitoris feel like? Like that's not family research, Josh. So like,
yeah. And it's like self-perception theory. Like it's not that people, this is something we're trying to reverse in psychology. Like everybody by nature does this, and it takes a lot of practice to undo this. You make a decision and then you think about why you did it. That's called BIM self-perception theory. Google it if you want to, but that has the most evidence, empirical support. People do things all the time and then go, and then when you ask them, you're like, why did you do that? And then they're like, I did it because of this. And sometimes it's more blatantly obvious. People will be like, I don't know, I guess I was hungry, and so I just grabbed a sandwich. I'm not really hungry, and they set it down or whatever, right?
Right.
But sometimes they'll be very adamant about it, but they're always wrong. It's not how psychology works. Like they'll be like, I know exactly why I did it. I did it because I want to be friends with so-and-so. And you're like, really, you do? And you start challenging it, and they're like, well, yeah, but I also wanted this. And you're like, that's not how it works. Your thoughts don't come before your behaviors. Your behavior comes beforehand. It takes an intervention, a cognitive intervention, to think before you do something. And that's how we want you to act, but it's not natural. Like language, like languaging something out, subvocalizing, which means thinking, before you do something, it has no evolutionary precedence. We would never have done that because we didn't have language.
Yeah, we haven't had language long enough to evolve, like to make that a natural thing we do.
Right, to make thinking before a behavior. So you don't do it. And if you say you do, you're wrong. There's no theoretical reason. There's no empirical reason to believe that. And if you do, you've trained it to do it over a long amount of time.
Right, it's learning behavior that's going against your instincts.
Yeah, learning is way more powerful than a genetic influence. So like, yes, you can overrule something, but it's not something you do naturally. So for here, I think what they're doing is what they wanted to do was keep this under the wraps, right? Like, they were like, how can we deal with this and keep this out of the media attention? And then they just did that. And then later someone's like, why did you do that? And they're like, oh, I'm a good person, so I probably did it because it was counseling. And it's like, there's no reason if you would have used forward logic to believe that that's counseling. If you would have thought to yourselves like, oh my God, my son just molested my daughters and some other people. We need to make sure there are no more victims. What can I do? You would find that there are plenty of interventions for sexual perversion. None of them involve building houses. So that's bullshit.
Right. So anyway, I just thought, especially with the news the way it's been and all these things happening, I just was struck by the blatant hypocrisy of we value families, also we destroy families every day for fun. Not for fun, but just as a byproduct of what we actually value, which is social standing in our religion and our version of God.
Yeah. Yeah. It's insane. But anyway, well, yeah, that's cool. I think that probably wraps this up. This week you want to, and then we'll just move in. There's been no feedback because it's been like less than 24 hours. So we're going to go ahead and give it a week before we do that. So I guess we'll just sign off. I mean, we'll see you in the future. There's a possibility, just like I said in the last podcast, that I might get back. I'm going to get back on Sunday, but just depending on how quickly I can sneeze, then I'm going to know how quickly I can unpack. Thank you. Then I want to try to get this recorded and get it out on Sunday, but there's a possibility it'll be Monday. So if it is, sorry about that. I can tell you that future me did the best I could. So, but until then, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.